What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com, and I promised you guys that I was going to pump out content this week leading up to the AFC Championship game on my live stream last night with Michael Darcy because, guys, this is the biggest game of the year. I'm pumped. I want to make videos for you guys. I'm trying to be more consistent. And look, this might be the last Chiefs game of the year. We have to acknowledge that possibility. So I'm going to be covering the hell out of this game. And today I wanted to start your guys' Monday by talking about how freaking important this game is for the Kansas City Chiefs defensive line. It's very important for the defense. It's very important for everybody. As a whole, this game is important because it's the AFC Championship game. But there's individual, smaller storylines beyond the Kansas City Chiefs as a whole. And one of those is the defensive line, because last year, I think the performance of the defensive line was one of the biggest reasons that the Kansas City Chiefs lost to the Cincinnati Bengals in the 2021 AFC Championship game. In this game, which happens to be a rematch of the 2021 AFC Championship game, is going to be a very good barometer for measuring whether or not the Kansas City Chiefs did what they needed to do to fix this pass rush in the offseason. And once again, this doesn't just go for the defensive line. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs are in the exact same scenario that they were in last year. You're in the AFC Championship game at home against the Cincinnati Bengals, who beat you last year. And yes, these two teams are marginally different from those two teams that met last year, but for the most part, it's the same structure. And you have, again, a very similar scenario because, once again, you're facing a Cincinnati Bengals offensive line that is beat up and not very good. Their left tackle, Jonah Williams, is dealing with injuries. Their center got hurt against the Buffalo Bills, and they have offensive line injuries. The Kansas City Chiefs finished second in the league in sacks during the regular season, and that was a big step up from last year. Now they need this pass rush to step up when it matters. And if they don't step up, guess what? The offseason's going to be considered a failure. And some people will disagree with that, because the Chiefs did create, longevity with the way that they handled the offseason. But I think also the goal of last offseason was to better the team to win a game like this, win a game against the Cincinnati Bengals, prevent what happened against the Cincinnati Bengals in the 2021 AFC Championship game from ever happening again. And now you're back in the 2022 AFC Championship game facing the Bengals. Let's see what you did to fix this team, to fix this pass rush. Because to me, if the Chiefs go into this game and they lose and they're not able to get pressure on Joe Burrow and they're not really able to convert pressure into sacks, and that somehow really factors into why they lost, then I'm going to be really disappointed and say, look, this is the exact same thing that killed you last year. Yet here we are, a year later, fast forward, and it's not fixed. And the discouraging part would be that the Chiefs invested in the pass rush in the offseason. They made moves, and if it's still not good enough to get it done in this game, then you got to look at how you're operating. You got to take a look in the mirror and go, am I making the right moves? Did I do enough? And I cannot stress enough that this issue is one that goes beyond the defensive line, and the whole defense is going to have to step up in this game, because this entire defense got punked by the Cincinnati Bengals earlier this regular season. No one really looked good, but the defensive line was an aspect of this team that I think struggled mightily against the Bengals both this past regular season and last year against the Bengals in the 2021 AFC Championship game. You guys all remember Chris Jones, he had Joe Burrow in his grasp, let him go. Frank Clark did nothing in that game, 0 pressures and 34 pass rushing snaps. Melvin Ingram was the only defensive lineman on the Chiefs to have a sack in that game, and he's not on the team anymore. We also know that the second level of this Chiefs defense is not too great in coverage. The Bengals are probably going to be able to rush on the Chiefs like they were able to last game. And this pass defense has struggled against Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, that trio. And I want to give credit to the Bengals because the Bengals are just a really good offense, and it's always going to be a challenge. But the defensive line, there needs to be an emphasis put on their performance because they can directly affect the rest of those units, the secondary and the linebackers, because if they can get pressure on Joe Burrow and get to him before he gets the ball out, or just force the ball to come out quicker so the Chiefs are not getting beat deep, then that's a good thing. This defensive line also just needs to avenge what happened last year. I mean, you got embarrassed, like Frank Clark and Chris Jones. Chris Jones, he was getting pressure in that game, but you had to bring Joe Burrow down when you had him in your grasp. That sack on 3rd and 7 essentially would have ended the game if Chris Jones would have gotten it. He missed him. Frank Clark didn't do anything. As I mentioned, you got your newcomers, Carlos Dunlap, George Karlaftis. Hopefully they're able to make an impact, but Clark and Jones more specifically, since they were here last year, they need to redeem themselves. And Frank Clark, he's been talking a big game this postseason. He had that post-game interview with James Palmer after the Chiefs beat the Jaguars and says he doesn't give a damn who we play in the next round. And he was talking all kinds of crap, like he's got to show up in this one, especially since he did nothing against the Bengals in the last game in the postseason. And then, I already talked about Chris Jones. So, this game is big for those guys. Prove it to us that you can do this. Cincinnati was 24th in the league this year in sacks allowed. Something's got to give, man. Eventually, the Chiefs' pass rush has got to get home against the Bengals. And what frustrates the hell out of me is how every team with a competent defensive line in the league can seem to get pressure on Joe Burrow and the Bengals, but the Kansas City Chiefs. We think the Chiefs have a competent defensive line this year. They were second in the league in sacks. Yes, they blitz a lot, but they took a huge step forward. Fucking do it against the Bengals, man. Please. Do it. I touched on it earlier, but I'll say it one more time. This Bengals offensive line is beat up. It's weak. Even though they made signings to improve it this past offseason, they're down a number of guys. And Lyle Collins, their big free agent signing, or I guess, he was a free agent. He's out for the Bengals. He's out for the rest of the season. So this is not the same Bengals offensive line from earlier this year. The Chiefs have got to get after it. And we know Joe Burrow gets the ball out quick. That's one of the things that makes him great. He doesn't have a bunch of elite physical traits, but he has a really high football IQ and he gets the ball out quick. But you can still affect him and you can still sack him. You can still bring him down. There are going to be opportunities in this game to do that. So to me, this game is huge for the defensive line. If the Chiefs are going to win this game, the defensive line has to step up. Again, yes, everybody has to step up. It's the AFC Championship, but this game should be personal for the defensive line. I guess you could say it's personal for everybody too. That applies to everyone on the team. Sure, I get it. But, man, this defensive line, they got to avenge what happened last year, man. They just do. Because they very much disappointed last year, and you have an opportunity to make things right. So, go out there and do it. The Chiefs are going to win this game. They need something from the defensive line. But those are my thoughts. I wanted to open up the week with that and talk about what the Chiefs need to do to ensure things go differently this time. So those are my thoughts, guys. Would love to hear from you, though. Leave in the comments your thoughts. If you agree, disagree with me on anything, we'll love to hear it. All that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And I will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!